This is our second video out of Chapter 5 on functions. In this video, we're going to talk about creating our own functions. So in the first video, we talked about using some of the built-in functions that come standard with C++ out of the CMath library and the string library. In this case, we're going to create functions for ourselves. So remember, a function then is just going to be a reusable block of code. Okay? And we're going to create these functions whenever we have code that's going to be reused a lot. It's going to make our code smaller. It's going to make it so our programs flow better. It's going to save us time and effort in coding things. Okay. It's also going to reduce errors. If we get a function that's working properly, then we should be able to use it again and again without any trouble. Okay. So that's the idea there. So again, we want to be able to reuse our code, want to be able to organize things. There are lots of kinds of things that we can do. Okay. So there are two basic kinds of functions. Okay. There are those that do not return anything, a value. We call these void functions. And there are those that return a value, which we call, oddly enough, value returning functions. Okay. We're going to start with the void functions. Okay. So it's important that we already have a function when in our C++ programs, right? The main. This we call it the main function. That's what it is. Every program that you execute, every executable program in C++ has to have a main, okay? That looks just like this, okay? So to develop another function, we can't develop it inside of mains. We have to go outside of main. Okay, so I'm going to go up to here. Okay. And let's start with a real simple version. Okay, so if we're going to create a void function, the first thing we type in is a return type. So again, with int main, that's why we have this return zero there. Zero means that things are okay. So a void function means there's no return type. Okay. Let's say I'm going to call this one hello. That's the name of my function. Okay. And all it's going to do is it's going to print out hello world. Okay. Not a super valuable function, but it does something for us. Okay. This is here's where we get to one of the golden rules I have for creating functions. And that's that a function should not print unless all it does is print. Okay. The reason being, if you have a function that, for example, lets you know if a number's prime or not, rather than have that be a void function that determines that it's prime and says the number is prime on the screen or some other printing. It's much better and makes your function much more generally usable to have that function be a Boolean function that returns a true or a false. Okay. Same thing if you're getting the area of a circle, if you're turning that into a function, rather than have it print out the area in some particular format in the function, have it just return that value as a double of the area. You can then do what you want to with it. Okay. So this is in keeping with that rules. This is printing. That's all it's going to do is print. Okay. So when it comes to calling the function, this one has no parameter. It has no return type. Okay, so all we have to do is call it. So if I say hello, okay, but I do need to correctly do this, it takes no parameters. Okay, but it does have to have that. Okay, I need a O, not a zero. Okay, so when I call that, it knows the function's going to go up there and get it. Okay, run this, make sure I'm doing it okay, because we are all prone to typos. Doesn't like something. What doesn't it like? I missed something somewhere. Void, hello. What doesn't it like? I don't know. Oh, here it is. I'm like, why does it not like it? It doesn't like it down here. That was the problem. I thought I should have looked at the line number, but I didn't. Yeah, it's at line 15. That's what the issue was. It was fooling me. Okay. That prints a hello world. Okay. Not a big deal. So it's also possible on our functions that are void functions or that they don't return a value, we can send it a parameter. Okay. we could send it multiple parameters. So let's go to our hello program and let's change it to where it's going to take a string called name. Okay. And then we're going to say hello like before, but now we're going to put that string name. Okay. So that means we have to change it down here. We have to actually send it something, right? So we'll go ahead and send it. Our old friend Bob. Okay. So we can send it a string from down here. Okay. So now this string is going to be sent up to our function. It's going to take the name. We'll print it out. Okay. That should work for us. Let's see if I've done it all correctly. So far, so good. There we go. Hello, Bob. Okay. We can send anything we want as far as parameters. It's not a big deal. We create a new function here, void function, call it happy birthday. Let's say it takes a string for the name and an int for the age. Okay. Then I'm going to see out happy birthday. It's got to spell happy, right? Happy birthday, name, something dumb like you are. Not very pretty, but I'm trying to get the point across quickly. Okay. Close that out. Okay. So now I can call this one. I can call happy birthday, Bob. Let's say Bob is 22. Okay. I'll run this now. See what we get. So far, so good. There we go. Missing a space, but that's easy enough fixed. Okay. So yeah, after the name, let's say we put a parentheses and a space, and that'll fix that up. Okay. So one thing that I've been doing, but I didn't really talk about, the functions have to be defined before they can be used. Okay. So if, for example, I were to move this function to the end of my program and try to run it, okay, it's going to tell us here that hello was not declared here. Okay. So I would have to go back and move that back up and it hits before the other. Okay. If you have functions that rely on other functions you've written, you have to make sure that you include them in the correct order so one doesn't get called before it's loaded. Okay. Now there's a way to avoid this issue that we'll talk about in the third video. Okay. So those are functions that don't return a value. We can have other functions that do return values. Okay, these can be pretty useful things. Okay, we're going to do some dumb ones probably. So let's create a function called add. Okay, add is going to take an int x and an int y. Okay, and I'm going to just so one problem here. So this is where the body's going to go. I have to tell it what the return type is. Okay. In this case, it's going to take two integers and return another one. Okay. We have options there. Sometimes people want to do something like int s is equal to x plus y. That's fine. And then do a return s. That works. No problem there. But we can also just be more direct and just say return x plus y. Okay. That's all we have to do. So then down here, when I call this, let's clear, I don't have to clear it out. It doesn't matter. So let's say we have an int x is equal to 10 and an int y is equal to 20. We can say again, because this returns something, I can just say, I mean, let's say I do that. I can say add x, y, and it's not wrong. If I typed it correctly, looks like I did. It's not wrong, it just doesn't do anything. Okay. So remember, since it returns something, like with our power function and everything else, we have to, when we're calling it, we have to either see out it, okay, which I can do. Just go ahead and put sum is, okay, or I could save it to a variable. Okay, sum is 30. Okay, so we're good. That makes sense. Okay, so one thing to think about here, and then we'll talk about some other issues. And we'll talk about the whys more in the third video. But the int x here is not the same as the int x up here. Okay. They share the same value, but they're not the same. So for example, if I were to say x is equal to 100 or 1000 up here, and I want to print out down here, see out x, x will not be 1000. X will still be 10. Okay, let's verify that. Make sure I'm not lying to you. X is still 10. Okay. And we'll talk about the reasons for that next time. But just know that from what we're doing, or the next video, what we're doing now, nothing. That's why we were able to call this here with just the strings direct here. Okay. So when we're sending Bob, we're sending 22. We're sending the values. We're not sending the actual variables. So when we call this here, what we're saying is we're not sending X and Y, we're sending 10 and 20. Okay. And that's why that does what it does. Okay. So these functions that you create can be as complicated as you want. Okay. I just want to make sure that that you line up the correct number and type of functions or of parameters. Okay. So again, if I were to do something where I don't give it enough or give it too many, let's say I do this. Okay. Gives me an error. It doesn't have a version of the function that contains three. Oh, that's not the problem. It's got a different problem. The problem was I didn't have a z. So let's say z is equal to 30. Still have an issue, okay? That we've declared the add with an x and a y. So for two parameters, but not with three, okay? And again, just to show you that they're not connected, I could change these variables, get rid of this one because we don't need it. I could call this A and B and send it here as A and B. Okay. And it still works just fine. Okay. So the variable names that I send it, A and B, do not have to be the same variables that I use up here. Okay. So that's an important concept to keep in mind. Okay. The things you send it don't have to be all the same type. I mean, well, we already sent one with a string and an integer. You can send any number of things that you want. So no problems there at all. Okay. Um, let's do one more. Let's do a Boolean function to wrap it up. Let's say you want to do a function called is even. Okay. Let's say you're using that a lot in your program. So is even ideally is going to return a true or false, right? If it's true or not. Okay. So I'm going to create it like this. Bool is even. Okay. It's going to take some integer in. Okay. And then I'm having if inside of here. Anything you can code outside of a function or in the main function, you can do this one as well. Okay. So we can say if n mod 2 equals 0. And just to show this what I normally do when I'm doing complicated ones. This one's not, but I normally do it anyway. Okay, so I'm kind of going through the even and the odd. Those look funny. I'm not sure why. So I'm ending there. Sure, I've got those lined up correctly. Yeah, it's fine. Yeah, I'm not sure why I was doing that. Usually you can do it what I just did. Okay. So in the case that it's even, that it is even, I'm going to return a true. Okay. If it's odd, I'm going to return a false. Okay. That's all it's going to do. And then down here, I need to close that out. Okay. And down here, I can say cout is even A from above. Okay. And that's not going to be very useful to us, but let's see what we get here. That prints out a one. Okay. So it prints out a one because what it's saying is that's true. Okay. That's all it's asking. Okay. So instead, what we typically do with a Boolean down here, we can say if is even A, which again returns true or false. Okay. You can say cout even. Okay. Then end that one. Okay. Check this one out. Okay. Says that it's even. Check the other way. I could just change A to 11. Run it again. And it doesn't print anything because I didn't tell it to. Okay. So again, I would need to add down here else cout odd. Okay. Fix that. I get my keystrokes correctly. Got that. Run it, and it's odd. Okay. So we're good. Okay. So one issue you can have in our add function, let's say we just cout that. It's a bad idea, but you could certainly do it. Okay. If we do that, we compile it. Okay. We're going to get an error. And look what this error is saying here. No return statement in a function returning non-void. Okay. And what that's saying to us here is if we go back into our function, that this function that it points us to right here, okay, it said on line 19. So I've reached the end of this function without returning anything. Okay. So that's why you have to have, if it's not a void, okay, you have to have something there. Okay. And I can't return the same thing. I can't return something wrong. I can't say return 3.4. Okay. It's going to ignore that second one. It liked that okay. That's very strange. I wonder why. Oh, I guess again, I don't like that because what that did, I see what it did now. It did a implicit typecast. Okay. What if I return Bob? That should make it happy. Hey, when you try to make it happy, you don't make it happy. There we go. Now it's got an issue. Okay. It tried to convert from a constant char string, a character string, basically, into an int, which it can't do. Okay. So you do have to be careful that you get the type and the number correct. Okay. Um, you can only return one thing from a function. You can send as many parameters as you want. I mean, within limits. I mean, within the limits of sanity. Um, you can send a lot of parameters, but you can only return one thing. Okay. We'll have some options there, other things that we can do to return more information, but not through this process. Okay. So I think that's it, right? We have the void functions that start with the void keyword. They don't return a value. Those are often print functions. A function should, if it's going to print, then all it should do is print. Okay. And then we have the value returning functions, which return a value. They need a return statement inside the function. When they return a value, you have to either print it out with the cout or save it to a variable. Okay. And you have to make sure that your functions that are value returning have that type as the first thing. Are they returning an int? Then the first thing in the function is an int space file name or function name. Okay. And that should do it. In the last video of this series, we're going to talk about some more complicated things. We'll talk about how to make it so we can make changes in our functions to our variables. Okay, we've done a pass by value so far. We'll do a pass by reference in that video. We'll talk about the use of function prototypes so we don't have to put all of our functions at the beginning of our program. Okay, so we can get to our int main quicker. Okay, and there'll be a few other odds and ends that we'll talk about on that last video.